It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, with a little movie called John Wick Chapter 4 coming to theaters, Jacob and I are going to be celebrating some of the great action movies that have come out over the years. And it's just going to be a fun discussion, as always. And then we will be reviewing Season 1, Episode 8 of Luke Cage. But first, I have to introduce my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I will say it was kind of a rough weekend. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, the roommate that I live with tested positive for COVID, who also goes to school with me. So I had to pretty much stay at home the whole weekend while he was sick. But thankfully, we both tested positive this morning or Monday morning at the time we're recording this video. I made it back to school this week. My roommate's doing better. He's fine. And it's good to be back out again, going to school and having more of a Bible education and all that.
Negative, you mean?
Yes, I tested. Did I say positive?
Yes, you did.
I meant to say negative, you guys. I don't. I know what I was trying to say.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, wait a minute. Did he? No, but I'm sorry that your roommate got tested positive. I'm glad to hear that he and you are both getting better. That is a very
I never caught any symptoms, but I still stayed kind of distant on the other side of the trailer that I'm staying, just to play it a little bit safe. So I missed half a day of school because of it. But we're both doing real good now. It's definitely a blessing. COVID is not fun. I've said it before. I wouldn't wish COVID on even the people I don't care about. Just something you don't want to mess with.
Yeah. As my dad actually got COVID in like early December 2020, and I was thinking like, oh God, like what's gonna happen? Sure enough, it was like he was fine. It was just it that whole thing. It was just bizarre because he tested positive and he said he felt nothing.
Yeah.
So it's strange to say the least. But
Yeah, COVID comes in mysterious forms, and I've had COVID in the past, and I had it like in 2021, and it was a lot worse having it then because I had a lot of fevers and I was dehydrated several times. And my dad, when he had COVID, he had it worse, and it really messed with him. And we thought we were going to lose him because of how bad it had gotten to him. But thank God he got through that, and he's back to normal health, and he's been that way for 2 years. But what I'm thankful about now in 2023 is that I think 9 times out of 10, if you have COVID, it's a very mild case and you'll be better in like 3 to 5 days, pretty much.
that seems like what it has come down to now. But like I said, I'm happy you're better. I'm happy your roommate's better. How is school going for you? Any new developments?
School's doing pretty good. I've been having more opportunities and doing Bible classes and doing some sermons in this development, and it's been a really great journey. I got 2 weeks left in this first quarter, so final exams are coming up, and I got to prep some essays and papers, and I'm down on that final crunch, but I'm still excited about where this journey is going to lead. And like I said last week, I've not regretted this decision.
Yeah, well, keep us posted and keep us informed. But before we get into the meat of the episode, I want to get a bit of house cleaning out of the way. This coming Thursday, which by the time this episode goes up, it will be Wednesday the 22nd. Thursday the 23rd, I will be live on Jacob Martin's channel for the latest in our Discussing DreamWorks podcast. This month is going to be all about Shrek 2. And Jacob Collins from 3D Movie Cinema will also be there, and he's pretty much the human equivalent of the Tasmanian Devil. So it's going to be tons of fun. I actually have not seen Shrek 2 in many years, so rewatching this is going to be a trip because I've heard nothing but amazing things about it, and I remember seeing it in theaters, but it has been so long. So the rewatch on this will definitely be interesting, especially through like 2023 sensibilities.
Yeah, I am really excited about this rewatch too. I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite DreamWorks sequels with you and Jacob Collins. It'll be a lot of fun. So be on the lookout for that discussion. 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday the 23rd, over on my channel.
Yeah, legit. The only thing that I remember from that movie is the iconic stuff where Donkey's like, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" And then Shrek is like, can you just not be yourself for 5 minutes?" It's I I love that line so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of great moments in Shrek too.
Yes, so that will be on Jacob Martin's channel. It will be linked in the description of the video. Go give him a subscribe. He's been doing more hangouts and live content because of his schooling, but it is still worth a subscribe nonetheless. And so it's going to be a lot of fun this coming Thursday. But Jacob, outside of school, is there anything that you've been watching lately you want to talk about?
I have watched a couple things. TV wise, I'm 4 episodes in on The Chosen, and each episode I feel like has gotten better. Uh, Jesus has gotten more on the scene starting in episodes 3 and 4. He was kind of more in the background in the first 2 episodes, but it's good seeing how he gets involved, especially with some of the characters that we see throughout the New Testament Gospels. He has his encounter with Simon Peter and some of the other disciples, and that is such a powerful scene when you get to it, where he goes up to them and says, "Come, and I will make you fishers of men." It is an incredibly powerful moment, and I'm excited to see how the rest of that show is going to play out, and I think do a very respectful and authentic portrayal of how Jesus was when he was on this earth. And then Mandalorian season 3, I watched episode 3 of that. Went in a weird direction. The first 10 minutes has some amazing Mandalorian action, some cool Mandalorian stuff in the last 10 minutes. But the middle of it, there's this weird subplot with the doctor character that we saw in one episode in the second season. I didn't mind the subplot per se. I was still invested in that storyline and where it was heading, but it was such a weird detour, and it did not really connect with the Mandalorian stuff that I felt like I was watching a different show. I hope the two stories eventually cross and intersect and it has some sort of a purpose to it. But it was a bit jarring to see a completely random story in an episode called The Mandalorian.
Yeah, that was bizarre because my review show that I do with Chris over at T3 Medias, we didn't review that episode because of just him being busy and such. So didn't have a chance to review it with him, but yeah, like I kind of sort of understand what they were trying to go for, in that this doctor is now left what remains of the empire and is trying to go the straight and narrow. I respect that, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like this is one of the problems I had with the Book of Boba Fett show. Is like it's titled literally The Book of Boba Fett, and yet most of the time he's in a bantha tank. And so, like, why name the show after him if you were just going to make The Mandalorian season 2.5, which is what it turned out to be? I'm I'm not killing the idea of it in my head of this character. I want to see where, or the season, I want to see where the season goes. I'm kind of I'm not killing it in my head, but it's just a weird flex, and that's really all I can say.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in agreement there. I'm not as negative on it, I would say, because I enjoyed a lot of stuff about the episode, but I feel like if the show keeps taking too many weird flexes, I think it's going to turn a lot of people off. much like the Book of Boba Fett did. And I think a lot of people are going to turn away from The Mandalorian because of it, unfortunately.
The sad thing about Star Wars in 2023 is that The Mandalorian is literally the only thing that gets really talked about nowadays, outside of it being in the news cycle and one project being greenlit and then one project being canceled. We just had the whole thing with Patty Jenkins, and her Rogue Squadron movie is canned indefinitely or permanently, depending on how cynical you are. So The Mandalorian is the most potent weapon in the arsenal right now. It's pretty much their only bullet in the chamber because Book of Boba Fett was not great. Obi-Wan Kenobi, that mini series had its moments, but overall it was just kind of there. I liked some of it. I at least liked the moments when Obi-Wan and Anakin were facing off. I thought that was fun. And then Andor, I still haven't seen it, and you haven't seen it either. You haven't
I
seen it.
tried. I tried to watch Andor, and I respect people for liking it, but to me, the show was such a snooze, and I struggled to get past the show after episode 4.
Yeah, and so I'm my thinking, and I hope they don't go this way, is they're like gonna get experimental with characters that no one particularly cares about, at least not without a good deal of hype. So I sincerely hope they don't go in that direction. Again, I'm not killing the season in my head. I want to see where they go with it, but I don't know. It's just the prospects are starting to turn towards bad, but I'm sure we can do a whole conversation on Star Wars, and that'll be its own podcast one day. But but let's table that for right now. But
Yeah,
as for
yeah, I've
me,
seen. There's other movies that I've watched as well. I was just diving into the TV stuff.
oh, okay, my bad.
Okay, but other things I watched. I revisited Galaxy Quest for fun. I caught it on Netflix. It was a blast to revisit. I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan, but this movie did a great job of taking like the essence of Star Trek, kind of spoofing it in such a fun, tongue-in-cheek way, while also being its own fun sci-fi adventure. And to be honest, I'd rather rewatch Galaxy Quest over 3/4 of the Star Trek movies any day. So to me, that's a major compliment in itself. I watched a couple of Peter Bogdanovich TV movies. The Mystery of Natalie Wood, he directed in 2004. Pretty solid TV movie, biopic about the life of Natalie Wood. It's a little long, and it's a sad watch if you know her life story. But I feel like he did a good job of doing a delicate portrayal of the real life actress, all the highs and lows in her career. And even as a TV film, I still felt like there was a lot of care put into it. Uh, I also watched this TV film Hustle, not the Adam Sandler movie that came out last year. This is a 2004 TV movie about Pete Rose, who was a baseball player who became a coach in the 80s, but he lost everything when he started diving into illegal gambling. There's good potential for a story there. The lead performance from Tom Sizemore, who played Pete Rose, who sadly recently passed away. Rest in peace to that actor. I thought he gave a solid performance, but the movie itself to me was kind of boring, and the movie didn't really do enough for me to care or sympathize with the main character's actions. The movie just kind of went through the motions as a TV movie, and I didn't really care for it. And then finally, I've watched a Disney movie called Meet the Deedles, which is a Disney film that came out in 1998, which stars these two surfer bro twins who end up somehow being Yellowstone park rangers to try to restore ties with their strict dad or whatever. It is such a bad movie. It was Disney's really bad failed attempt to try to recapture the success that other studios had with like Bill and Ted and Wayne's World and Dumb and Dumber, and it just fell flat on its face. I disliked the two main characters so much. The sad thing is, one of the two was played by Paul Walker in one of his earliest roles before he was in Fast and Furious, and probably the most unlikable I've seen Paul Walker in a movie, which is just sad. The morals are very questionable in this movie. Like these two kids who get caught up in this um, Yellowstone park ranger stuff, and they do so many horrible things. This movie, it's hard rooting for them. Everyone is stupid. There's a lot of juvenile slapstick that really falls flat. You know what's even sadder? You know who they got to play the villains in this movie? They got Dennis Hopper and Robert England. Freddy Krueger is a villain in a juvenile Disney comedy, and they dumb him down to playing an imbecile in this movie.
Hang on, I gotta look up when this movie was released. What was the name?
Like, Meet the Deedles. It came out in 1998. So this was long after he played Freddy Krueger.
All right, Meet the Deedles. Okay, I found it. It's got a 4.0 on IMDb.
Oh,
Wow.
I would give it a lower score than that.
Oh, geez.
It's like a 1 out of 5 for me.
Directed by Steve Boyum. He did stunt work on Predator, Falling Down, and Apocalypse Now. So this guy's a veteran.
Oh man, it doesn't look like it doesn't even look like a professionally made film. Like the movie has like really poor green screen effects. There's even shots of Paul Walker and the other kid. They're surfing down a river at one point to try to rescue somebody. And some of the shots of these two people surfing, it doesn't even look like they're actually surfing. Like there's like wide shots of these two, and it looks like they're both photoshopped on this river. It is so pitiful for a 90s comedy how bad some of the effects look.
That's some serious talent they got in the acting department, especially Dennis Hopper and Robert Englund. I mean, Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, I mean, he's a horror icon. Dennis Hopper was like a legend in the film world. I mean, Hoosiers, Apocalypse Now, directed and starred in Easy Rider, among others. So, I mean, Paul Walker, rest in peace. But
Yeah,
man, this
it,
sounds
it's
sounds
so
like
bad.
this sounds like a
My
dream.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. The only reason I watched it, my friend Ramsey from his channel Henry Mockingbird, kind of dared me to watch it because he reviewed it on his channel, just for fun. And so now I'm watching it, and I just watched it. It's bad. The sad thing is the movie was so bad it never got a DVD release, and you can only watch it on Disney Plus.
Wow, that's an interesting fact. It's like, wow, that there's a part of me that kind of wants to watch it out of morbid curiosity, but that would probably be a mistake.
Oh, it's a really big mistake. It's a really bad stinker for sure.
All right, well, if that's all you got, for me, I've watched a few things lately. Coming up on Rachel's channel for Rachel Reviews for the Hidden Gems podcast, I was challenged to watch five of her recommendations, which is something that we do every once in a while. And so over the past couple of days, I watched Anna and the Apocalypse, which is a movie that she has recommended to me a lot. And so I was like, well, now's the time. It's currently streaming on the service Tubi, which I'm sure you all know from that viral marketing campaign during the Super Bowl. It's secretly a pretty solid service. They got a lot of crap on there, but most streaming services do. They have actually a quite bit of quality on there. And the Apocalypse, it had no business being as good as it was. The best I can describe it is if Andrew Lloyd Webber directed Shaun of the Dead. It's very much in the Shaun of the Dead mold. It's very similar to that. However, it's a musical and it takes place at Christmas. So I know why Rachel loves it so much. But it's a very fun movie. It's actually quite serious at times. It's it's a fun zombie flick. It's severely underrated and I recommend it to everyone. I saw Montana Story, which is a hidden gem from last year. It's on the Canopy service, which is another service I recommend. It's about a couple of siblings who reunite to help close up their father's affairs because he is on his deathbed. And Haley Lou Richardson stars in this, and she is becoming an actress who I am consistently watching out for because she's great. And her brother, played by Owen Teague, is surprisingly really good too, and I hope he gets more work. I saw in theaters Shazam Fury of the Gods, and that review is currently on the channel now. It's fine. Like, it's perfectly, like, it's harmless. That's the best I can describe it. I think I said in my review I'm not at superhero movie burnout yet. However, if the movies keep coming like this, I'm not sure I'm gonna be in the almost there for very long. If Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is any good, then I'm like, all right, maybe we'll just chalk that up to a rebuilding phase. But I don't know. Even still, it feels like the movie is just going to be irrelevant come June when the Flash movie comes out, and then there'll be a trivia question like, what was the last movie in the modern incarnation of the DCU before they went to Gods and Monsters? Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So that'll be interesting. And then that's about it. I'm stoked for John Wick Chapter 4, which is coming out this weekend, and how my work schedule is I had to cover for someone, so I'm off Friday when I'm usually working. So the first showing I get, which is around 10 o'clock in the morning, you know where I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be in the theater watching John Wick Chapter 4.
All right, that sounds like a good plan. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on John Wick Chapter 4. Before we wrap up, I want to say uh, rest in peace to Lance Reddick, I think's his name, who just
Yeah,
recently
Lance Reddick.
passed away. That was such a shock. I was not expecting that actor to suddenly pass away so soon. He looked like he was in good health. And I enjoyed seeing his presence in the other John Wick movies. So yeah, he'll definitely be greatly missed. I enjoyed seeing him in all the John Wick movies, and yeah, it'll be sad seeing the new John Wick movie, knowing that he's not with us anymore.
Yeah, what's even sadder is that he died of natural causes. So it wasn't COVID or a disease or an accident of any kind. It was like he just went to sleep and he never woke up.
Mm.
So
He was
it's
like he was only what 60, right?
just about, it was in that ballpark. So yeah, rest in peace to Lance Reddick. He was the concierge in the John Wick movies. He was in the HBO TV show The Wire, which I have not seen all of, but I've enjoyed his role in. He's the chief of police and tells Jimmy McNulty what to do. So rest in peace to him. I saw this viral video of him because Lance Reddick voiced a character in the video game Destiny 2, and he actually played the game quite a bit because he just enjoyed playing video games. And when he passed, it was just after he got done playing a game session there. And thousands of players logged on and found where his character was in the world, and they had a tribute for him in the game, which was a very nice thing. I recommend you all hunt it down. It's a very beautiful thing. It's one of those faith in humanity restoring kind of things that'll make you go, not all gamers are idiots.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, well, what have you all been watching lately? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, it's time to talk about Luke Cage, season 1, episode 8. And this episode is called, or actually episode 9. I said 8. I really did say 8.
Yeah, he did say 8, but it
We're
is 9.
talking about episode 9. My bad, y'all. Talking about episode 9 called DWYCK. When Luke, with Luke wounded and on the run, Misty faces a soul-searching investigation. Mariah's rise to power takes a dark turn. So this was a very Misty-heavy episode, if you really think about it, and I think it was honestly quite intriguing. Jacob, what did you think?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting most of the episode to focus on kind of like the interrogation of the Misty character after she kind of messed up and choked pretty much, and she's talking to this former police character who's now a psychiatrist. But it was an interesting conversation about her role and her ethics and everything. And that actress gave a real good performance this episode, and I totally bought her convictions, especially when she breaks down near the end when she reveals why she became a detective in the first place. The rest of the episode's pretty good. I enjoyed seeing more of Luke's story and him trying to heal himself after being wounded pretty bad. And I enjoy seeing the vulnerability of Luke Cage, who was invincible early on in the season. I enjoyed the Mariah storyline where she wants to get out of being in where Cottonmouth was, but she's kind of being drawn into it, especially when the Diamondback character becomes a vital part of it. And speaking of Diamondback, I enjoyed that character. I thought the show was going to have a big lull after getting rid of Cottonmouth so early, but Diamondback is a real good successor to where Cottonmouth left off. And I dare say he's even more slimier because of his past connections with Luke Cage. And I'm excited to see more of that connection be more explored and played out. They did a weird cliffhanger where you're meant to believe that Luke Cage is dead. I don't believe that for a second because we still got like 3 or 4 more episodes left in season one. And I know they made a season two after this, so I didn't buy it 1 second. But man, I feel so bad for Luke Cage at the end, where the way to try to get those bullets out of him is the way they describe it is pretty much to deep fry him like you're cooking a turkey. And just thinking about that just sounds utterly painful.
Well, I mean, when your skin is basically steel, you gotta get creative if you're going to perform surgery on the guy. But I like how Claire and the doctor had to like work it out because traditional methods are pretty much useless on Luke, and it's a challenge to try and figure it out. I like that. I like the spirit of that. As for the Mariah character, she is slowly becoming like one of my favorites, or at least the one I'm intrigued by the most. It feels like she's trying to be the crime boss while also trying to be the politician all at the same time. She's trying to have the cake and eat it too. And I don't think it's going to work out for her.
Yeah. Yeah, she's reminding me of Al Pacino in The Godfather Part 3. Just when I think I'm out, they bring me back in.
Yeah, she's trying to play both sides, but it's like you can't you can't be the hero and the villain. You got to pick one and stay in your lane. And and so it feels like she's going to lean more into trying to get Luke as like a distraction, and while she is trying to be more nefarious. And it's I don't think it's going to work out for her. I think she's taking it way too personal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'm excited to see more of how that's going to play out. I know justice will fall down on her in some way in the show, and I think it'll be a very satisfying payoff.
Yeah, I've wanted to ask you this. What do you think of the Shades character? Do you have any strong feelings?
Who's the Shades character? Is that the random guy in the background that's kind of pushing Mariah?
Yes.
I'm kind of indifferent on him. Like he's just kind of a mad character in my opinion. I'm not annoyed by him in any way. Uh, he serves his purpose in the scenes that he's in, but I'm not as invested in that guy as I was in as I am with Mariah or I was with Cottonmouth.
I thought he had a good monologue in the last episode talking about who Mariah's family was and Mama Mabel. I thought that was good. And I mean, he's good as the henchman, but I was like, oh, I wonder. I was just randomly wondering if you had any strong feelings on him.
I will say, as far as power goes, I'd rather see him as a henchman than be like the main villain because as the main villain, I would say he'd be on the forgettable side if that was the case.
It's interesting you bring that up because it feels like they were going in that direction, but then Diamondback just put him right back in his place.
Which, which I appreciate that because Diamondback is pretty dope as far as villains go.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a severely underrated part of the Netflix MCU stuff, now the Disney Plus MCU stuff. But what did you all think of this episode, season one, episode 9, not 8, episode 9 of Luke Cage? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. Well, Jacob, it's time for the main event. Let's let's do a little talking about action, the action celebration. It's kind of a spin-off of the animation celebration we do once a quarter because John Wick Chapter 4 is coming to theaters. It's I thought it'd be fun to talk about a little action. And I don't know if maybe you can remember this, but do you remember like the first action type movie that you remember falling in love with?
Oh, that is a good question. We're talking about like traditional action movies, no sci-fi, no fantasy, no
Correct.
comic book movies, anything like that.
Correct.
All right, let me think. First action
Because
movie
I
I fell in love with.
because I know mine, but I wanted to hear
Yeah,
yours.
I'll let you go first while I think about
So mine was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think, is better technically. It's like the perfect action movie, in my opinion. But The Last Crusade just has more heart for me. It's among the great third movies of all time, like Return of the Jedi, Return of the King, Last Crusade, John Wick Chapter 3, and I'm sure I think there's one more I said in my Parabellum video that I'm forgetting conveniently, but Last Crusade is one that I fell in love with the genre with as a result. That was my gateway drug, for lack of a better word.
it. All right. I feel kind of an idiot for not thinking about what it is because the Indiana Jones movies were kind of my gateway into the action genre to begin with. Because I remember watching the original three Indiana Jones films just when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was coming out for the first time. And even as I think I was about 12 or 13 when I first watched the Indiana Jones movies. And even right away, I loved them. I enjoyed how action packed they were. I love Indiana Jones as a character. And all the action set pieces were very well thought out. And they're still among my favorite action films this day, especially Raiders and Last Crusade. I think those are most people's favorite films in the franchise. I lean more towards Raiders of the Lost Ark because that movie had more iconic set pieces, though I would argue Last Crusade has more heart out of any of the Indiana Jones films. But I think after thinking about, I think the first action movie I saw as a kid that I fell in love with, I'm gonna have to say National Treasure with Nicolas Cage. I saw that movie when it came out in 2004, 2005 ish. I don't think I saw it in theaters. I think either we rented the DVD or my mom blind bought the DVD because it looked interesting. And I watched it. And ever since I watched it, I thought it was a great experience. It was my introduction to Nicolas Cage as an actor. And I've been a fan of Nicolas Cage ever since. The movie does a good job of you know, having a bit of a ludicrous storyline dealing with conspiracy theories involving the founding fathers and an invisible treasure map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. And the main storyline is Nicolas Cage going to steal the Declaration of Independence from falling into the wrong hands and stuff. But yet, the movie does such a good job of kind of embracing the silliness of the premise while also getting you invested in the premise at the same time and having Nicolas Cage play the leading man who is actually a genius in this movie compared to some of his other roles where he's more over the top was actually a smart move. I enjoyed the action, the adventure is really cool, the mythology is a lot of fun. And just every time I watch National Treasure, I just have a soft spot for I think the American history, just all the clues that the characters have to solve. Nicolas Cage being a force to be reckoned with. It's all around a great action thrill ride, and the sequel, National Treasure: Book of Secrets, is just as fun too. I like both movies.
Yeah, National Treasure is a movie that I have a ton of fun with. Like you said, it's the premise is pretty ludicrous, but that's kind of what I love about it. I love just the movie's just fun. It's so much fun, and I love it. And it really has a really solid cast if you think about it. Nick Cage, Diane Kruger is Abigail Chase, who's been in a lot of movies. Justin Bartha as Riley Poole, who I love and have a lot of fun with. Sean Bean is the villain, and he doesn't die in this one. In a twist of fate,
Yeah.
he doesn't die in this. John Voight as Ben's dad, I think, was a really good choice. Christopher Plummer's in there for one scene, but it's nice to see him as the name John Adams Gates. That is his actual character name. And I love Harvey Keitel as Sadusky. I like the dynamic that they have. I love the speech at the end where Ben finds the treasure and like they talk about the treasure, come to find out that he has like the ring on his finger of the Templar logo. So he has a bit of a connection to it. I love that. So yeah, National Treasure is so much fun. It's actually got some pretty good action sequences, like when Nick Cage and Riley and Abigail are driving away, and they're being chased by Howe and his goons in the streets of DC. That's a really good chase, and it looks pretty practical, which you would never see that today. And then the foot chase in Philadelphia is a lot of fun too. So yeah, there's a lot of good sequences in there. While we're on the subject, what do you think of Book of Secrets, the sequel?
I do like it. I don't like it as much as the first movie. There's a couple storylines, especially in the beginning, where the characters are at a lower point, which I thought was a bit too contrived for my liking. But once the story got going, I would say it's just as fun of a movie as the first film. And I like that the movie still has the ridiculous moments. Like in this movie, Nick Cage has to kidnap the president of the United States, which is a lot of fun. Uh, and one of my all-time favorite over-the-top Nicolas Cage moments is in Book of Secrets, where he and Abigail have to make a scene in Buckingham Palace. And it's like, it's the wrong time. It's the wrong place. He's going down the stairs going,
Wrong about us, wrong about Thomas Gates, and wrong
Gates.
if you would like the Queen Anne chair.
And then he does that. Then he does that fake British accent. He's like, "Hello, you're gonna detain a bloke for enjoying his whiskey? Oh, I got a lovely bunch of coconuts, TGs, and the are standing in the road. Big for one time, big as your head."
What I love about that what I love about that part is as he's being dragged out and like Riley has to take his earpiece out at a point because it's so loud. And he's like, oh man, I love that. I love that part so much. But
I think that was my first exposure to the caginess of Nicolas Cage.
that's a good way of putting it, yes. Um, but this one is a good cast too. Nick Cage returns, Diane Kruger returns, Justin Bartha returns. You get Ed Harris as the villain, Mitch Wilkinson, which, I mean, if you're going to get a good villain, you might as well get Ed Harris. I mean, The Rock, for goodness sake. You get Bruce Greenwood as the president, which he's only in a few scenes, but I can buy him as a president. I think he did a good job.
Yeah. And don't
And then,
forget Helen Mirren as Ben's mom, who was a great addition to the movie. And I loved her back and forth with especially John Voight as they hated each other for years and they slowly love each other again by the end of the adventure.
yeah, it's when they're at Mount Rushmore and they have to water the rocks to find the first key, and then and then and then John Voight's like Emily, water, and Emily's like, do you see this in my hand? Are you blind? I just love that delivery. I don't know why. I just it's the fact that Helen Mirren is delivering that. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. I hate that we never got a third National Treasure movie. I know it had been in development for many years, but it just never came to fruition. I know Cage is kind of off doing his own thing now. Disney tried reviving the series on Disney Plus recently with a new cast, and from what I've heard about the show, apparently it did not capture what the original movies did well, and apparently it's really bad. And I never really had an interest in watching it, but I don't know. Hopefully, one of these days they'll crack the code again, somehow get Cage back and get him in at least one more movie.
I
That's
mean,
all I'm fingers crossed.
number one, it's Nicolas Cage. He can do whatever he wants, in my opinion. And number two, I mean, you can't do National Treasure anything without Nicolas Cage. Full stop. And they brought back Harvey Keitel for that series. I know because I saw the trailer for it, but it was just never going to be the same, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But uh, but yeah, the National Treasure movies, I love those. Like I said, Last Crusade was definitely the one that made me fall in love. But I remember one that my dad showed me that was definitely heavier and more near the knuckle. It was the first Rambo movie, First Blood, it was called at the time. And that movie is surprisingly pretty deep for something that was released in 1982. So we're talking like very early into Stallone's like beefcake phase, like almost there. It was like near prime Stallone if you're really thinking about it. But he plays this character who has come back from Vietnam. He had a bad time there. He's just trying to start over. And then this town, and specifically this sheriff, just will not leave him be to the point where they arrest him and they just torture him. But then he's like, all right, I'll show you something. And it's all coming from a place of trauma. And what we know now about PTSD, I think the movie in that department has aged pretty well, all things considered, Jacob. But have you seen First Blood?
I have seen First Blood. In fact, I've actually seen all five Rambo movies, but of all five, First Blood is definitely the best one. It is definitely the most grounded, I would say, for the most part of the Rambo movies. Over time, the Rambo movies, I think, definitely lean more into over the top action, whereas the first one is the one that leaned more into the psyche of Rambo as somebody who never really got full treatment post Vietnam. They didn't understand PTSD at the time. And so people just think he's a loser, a bum, and a weirdo. And he never fully recovered from that. And yeah, there's action in there, and the action in the movie is great. But most of the movie is more so leaning in on the fact that you have a town, and particularly the sheriff, who doesn't understand him. They view Rambo as a threat, and Rambo's just going. He went unstable and is only relying on the tactics that he knew from the horrors of war. So it's kind of a sad movie to watch if you think about it. And then the breakdown Rambo finally gives at the end is easily one of my favorite Stallone acting moments in any movie that he's ever been in. Like, honestly, that speech alone was kind of an Oscar worthy moment for him. I mean, I get it. Aside from Rocky, the Academy doesn't really take Sylvester Stallone seriously, but he gave such a powerful speech at the very end, talking about the harsh treatment a lot of these vets got because of how unpopular the war was at the time. You just feel so bad for the guy, and it's such a raw monologue that he gives. It just felt so real to watch.
Yeah, shout out to Brian Dennehy who plays Teasel, the sheriff. He did a unsettlingly good job of playing just the worst sheriff you could ever ask for. And then also shout out to Richard Crenna who played Troutman, the Rambo's former commanding officer. I thought he was fantastic in the role. And like I said, that moment where Rambo just lays out all of his like just bears his soul. It's just beautiful stuff. There are people who like to think of Sly as the like just a voice, but he's more than that. You give him the right material, he crushes it every time.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I'm glad that he has at least two Oscar nominations for playing Rocky twice, which shows that yeah, Stallone is a great actor when you give him the right material, and I feel like Rambo is probably the second best character he's played behind Rocky. Have you seen any of the Rambo sequels by any chance?
It's been a good while. I know I saw two, which, I mean, talk about a jump in tone going from very mature, very like dark, like commentary on PTSD and Vietnam veterans to Rambo just shooting fire arrows in every direction. Bit of a weird flex, but like you said, they get more over the top as they go on. I was not a fan of the last one. I think they were trying to like go the Taken route and it didn't work, which we'll talk about Taken in just a minute. So it's a weird legacy. That's all I
Yeah,
will say.
I actually enjoy the Rambo series as a whole, even though they get more over the top as they go along. To me, the only one I didn't care for was Rambo 3, only because to me it didn't really feel like a Rambo movie. And I didn't really feel like I was watching Rambo the character. It just felt like generic Sylvester Stallone action movie, which it had some good spectacle, but it missed to me the heart of what made Rambo such a good character. And I feel like there was sprinkles of that in the other Rambo movies, Rambo 2, Rambo 4, and even Last Blood have still had sprinkles of Rambo as a character in there that I appreciated, but nothing matched what the original First Blood did.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's from Sly, let's talk about Arnie for a minute. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Uh, I think you could pretty much watch the first Predator and then Prey, and you can forget about the rest. I don't know how controversial a take that is, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Predator 2 is kind of underrated, and I actually do find that to be a pleasant surprise. So actually, I'll amend that. Predator, Predator 2, and then Prey, and you can forget about the rest, especially The Predator, which was just awful.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were talking about Schwarzenegger. People love the first Predator so much because he was a big part of the original movie. And yeah, I love the movie Prey. I would argue Prey I enjoyed more, I think, as a movie and especially as a horror movie compared to the first Predator, which the first Predator is more of an action movie in my opinion. But Prey works to me because of the cast. I enjoy the cast of characters in that movie. Arnold, Carl Weathers, Shane Black is even in the cast in that movie. And there's just some fun, larger than life characters. And the movie definitely, I think, kind of embraces how over the top some of the action is in that movie while still having some brutal moments at times with the Predator, and the makeup in that film's pretty good. But once Arnold goes head to head with the Predator, you get some really fun one on one action. I love Arnold's "get to the chopper" one liner. And even though it's not one I love by any means compared to Arnold's other big action franchise, yeah, the first Predator is still fun.
Yeah, it's got the greatest 180 in terms of tone in movie history, going from just your standard 80s shoot 'em up to a slasher movie when the Predator shows up. Because you got Arnold, you got Jesse Ventura, you got Bill Duke, you got Carl Weathers, all their big guns, both these guns and these types of guns, and they just all use up their ammo, and then the real movie begins. And it's just Shane Black, I'm not a huge fan of, but he at least wrote the screenplay for the first Predator, so he at least gets he's got his moments from me at the very least, because like I said, the Predator was god awful. But let's not dwell on that too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, if you want to go another Shane Black movie he wrote that I'm actually a big fan of, another one I'm going to talk about in this is Lethal Weapon, starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. Shane Black only wrote the screenplay for the first movie. All four Lethal Weapon movies, however, were directed by Richard Donner. And all four movies are consistently entertaining, even though I feel like the first one is the best one of the four. What makes the movies work are the pairing of Mel Gibson as Riggs and Danny Glover as Murtaugh. I think they are a great unlikely duo. You have Danny Glover as like your by the book cop, and Mel Gibson is Riggs, who's a lot more unhinged and over the top in his methods. They don't get along at first, but then they have such a great connection by the end, and it's just fun seeing these two on screen together. All four movies have great action in them, but to me, the first movie is still the best because I do love Shane Black's screenplay in the movie. I feel like it kind of riddled the line between being a fun action film while having a little bit of dark humor that I enjoy from Shane Black. And Plus, you got Gary Busey as the villain in the first movie, and he's pretty over the top to watch. There's a lot to enjoy in all four Lethal Weapon movies, but the first one would have to be my favorite.
So, tiny confession to make, I have not seen a Lethal Weapon movie yet.
Ooh,
I know, please don't roast me too horribly in the
wow.
comments. I have been meaning to. Trust me, I have been meaning to, especially since I'm involved in the multiplex movie trivia league now, so I imagine a Lethal Weapon question is going to come up, and I have to know it. So
Yeah.
I will definitely be getting around to it. The only thing I know of it is that Mel Gibson and Danny Glover are the two heads in it. But I know in the first one there's a scene where Martin Riggs talks about his depression and his mental health, about how he thinks about, you know, removing himself from this mortal coil. It's I'm sure Jacob, you know the scene I'm talking
Yes,
about.
I definitely know the scene that you're talking about. It's an intense moment too, because he actually did put a real bullet in the pistol because he was trying to go all method. And so if he had really if that had gone off, then that would have been a real bad tragedy right there. But thankfully, it didn't happen, and Mel Gibson's still here to tell the tale. So
Yeah, that seems like a Mel Gibson thing to do. That's
uh, But all four movies are fun. Starting in the second movie, Joe Pesci joins the cast, and he is a great addition to the Lethal Weapon movies. Like, I mean, it's Joe Pesci. He's always fun to watch and tends to steal the show. And it's fun seeing him in the Lethal Weapon movies. He has some hilarious rants. Definitely, if you want to watch a clip, watch the clip in Lethal Weapon 2 where he complains about being screwed over in the drive-through, and that's just the G-rated version of what he says.
well, I mean, it's Joe Pesci. If you need someone to rant for you, you call him.
Yeah, yeah. But
But
all the movies are good. But if you have to watch at least two, the first two are definitely the best in the franchise.
yeah, but that's one I'll definitely be adding to the watch list because I know I'm probably gonna have to know what it is at a certain point. But speaking of speaking of cop movies, I don't know, Jacob, have you ever seen any of the Rush Hour movies? Because I love all of them and they are all pretty solid.
I have actually only seen the first one.
C2 and 3, and I know that all of them are directed by Brett Ratner, which but trust me when I say all of them are fantastic. Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, they have great chemistry with each other. It's just some of the jokes that they have are just they're just so much fun. So I recommend all three.
Do you understand the
The
words
words that are
coming
coming
out of
out
my
my
mouth?
mouth. Classic.
Oh, they're all, the first one especially is so good.
Yeah, the scene where they're jamming out to War, What Is It Good For? But I believe Edwin Starr is a fantastic little moment.
Oh yeah, I definitely love that.
And then they go to like get some food from the Chinese like restaurant and Chris Tucker's like, what is this? Some greasy, you know, it's like a big old box of grease. And so he's ranting about how greasy the food is.
I love the fish out of water elements in that movie with Jackie Chan, and then he and Chris Tucker team up. I mean, the movie's definitely more comedic, but then you still get the awesome Jackie Chan action moments, and it's just all around a blast to watch.
Yeah, without a doubt. But moving right along to something more pure action related, it's funny that this is being inspired by John Wick Chapter 4 and it stars Keanu Reeves. I mean, he's an action movie legend. You got Speed, you got the Matrix movies. I'm sure there are others I'm missing, Point Break. I mean, that first Matrix movie, it's impressive that the Wachowski siblings made like dropped that like a certified gem of a movie and then did literally nothing else good. And I'm sure that you might disagree with me, Jacob. I mean, you did a whole Wachowski series on your channel, so maybe I'm wrong. But
Um,
Like that first Matrix movie was just one of the greatest of all time, and then they were like, that was it.
Well,
That was their shot.
I don't think you're truly wrong on that statement because the first Matrix is the only Wachowski film that was universally praised by just about everybody, and all their other films. I mean, they do have their fans, but a lot of their other films have been very divisive. But I do agree the original Matrix is a fantastic movie, has a lot of great ideas in there. It works as an action movie, but it also works as an intelligent sci-fi movie as well. I appreciate like the kung fu elements in the story. There's a little bit of anime influences in there, but it's also a very thoughtful and intelligently written movie that doesn't come off as pretentious compared to some of their later movies. But it's just a good balance of thoughtful and entertaining at the same time, kind of like what Christopher Nolan later did in Inception. But as far as other movies from the Wachowskis, I mean, I actually like The Matrix Reloaded. I think that's a pretty solid sequel. It had issues, but there's still some great action in there, especially the highway chase, especially, and that movie is fantastic. Revolutions, I have a lot of issues with, but I thought it was a solid conclusion to the trilogy. The less said about Resurrections, the better. That one was not good. And another one I recommend from the Wachowskis, if you're a fan of like over the top, if you're a fan of over the top sequences with a lot of anime influences, I recommend Speed Racer. I think that's a underrated hidden gem from that duo.
Oh, I say something stupid like that, and I forget that they did direct Speed Racer, which is a movie that I defend wholeheartedly because I actually grew up watching the Speed Racer cartoon. My dad introduced me to them from Japan, and those cartoons are wild. And the Wachowskis were just like copy paste, but in live action form, and it's low key kind of beautiful chaos. That's the best way I can describe the Speed Racer movie. Just beautiful, beautiful chaos because that movie is just wild, but it's also got a ton of heart. It's got a ton of heart.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then you had brought up Keanu Reeves. I know he's a real good action star. We love him in John Wick. I know we love him in The Matrix. But another action movie that I love with Keanu Reeves in it is Speed, which I didn't watch that movie until I think last year, 2022, for the first time. And even though it's technically one of those of that trend where everyone was trying to copy the plot of Die Hard but put it in a similar setting. Like Under Siege was Die Hard on a boat, and Air Force One was Die Hard on a plane. This is the one I enjoyed the most of the technically Die Hard knockoffs. Die Hard on a bus. Uh, the movie did a great job of getting you invested in the adrenaline of the premise. I love how simple the plot is, where the bus cannot be over 55 or 50 miles an hour, or else the bomb will explode on the bus and it'll blow up. That's as simple of a plot as you can get. But yet, the director did a great job of getting you immersed in the premise, putting you on the edge of your seat, and then having Keanu Reeves embracing everything about the premise, along with Sandra Bullock as the bus driver. Both actors have great chemistry. You got Dennis Hopper as a fun little villain. It's a great action adventure. If you I guess if you are worried this is too much of a Die Hard knockoff, I think the movie, yeah, the central premise is similar, but on a bus, but it works just in its own right. That it's just as good as Die Hard, in my opinion.
Yeah, if Speed pulls from anything, it only pulls from the best, and it's original, so it just becomes its own thing. It pulls from multiple different things, which makes it research. Like the old saying goes, if you pull from one thing, it's stealing. If you pull from multiple things, it's research. But yeah, Speed is awesome, directed by I believe Jan de Bont, if my memory serves.
Yeah, it's the same guy who did Twister, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he also was an editor on Die Hard, so the influence is definitely there. Dennis Hopper, again, bringing him up from Meet the Deals. I mean, he's the villain in this. And, you know, talking about that for a minute, him as the villain is honestly, he's one of those, like, I mean, again, he does very evil things, and that should be frowned upon, but it's not too far beyond the pale. Like, he's retired early, he's given the gold watch, which he uses as a weapon in the film. So it's he's sympathetic, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I feel like some of the villains in the 90s action film to me were a lot more diabolical, but I guess you can kind of see where Dennis Hopper's coming from. I also felt the same way with the character Ed Harris played in The Rock. You definitely understand his motives and see where he was coming from. Somebody that was screwed over by the system, and this is his way of getting what he wanted originally.
Yeah, without a doubt. But wrapping things up, wanted to mention a couple of more things. I wanted to bring up Taken, the first Taken, because that movie came out of nowhere and basically launched Liam Neeson's career and gave him a second wind. The sequels did not recapture the magic. It was that first Taken movie was lightning in a bottle, in my opinion.
Well, much like you on Lethal Weapon, I have a confession to make. I have not actually watched Taken.
It's
So I guess
definitely worth your time, especially the extended edition. It's not so long that it detracts from the quality. It just extends certain sequences, like just by like a minute or two. But the extended one gives more context to certain things, which is
okay.
very good. And like I said, it basically relaunched Neeson's career. And not to say that he was struggling or anything. He was in Batman Begins, among other things. So he was still doing good, but it was like Neeson just took that next step as a result of it. So
It's
definitely
kind
see.
of weird. Oh, sorry, but it's kind of weird that I've seen a lot of the Liam Neeson action films that came out after Taken, which are I think a lot of them are more mildly entertaining to mediocre at best. Whereas I've never seen the one that launched him into that typecast with Taken. So I'll have to give it a watch.
Yeah, for sure. And then one more one that I think is severely underrated from director Tony Scott is a movie called Unstoppable. And I believe that this was Tony Scott's last film before his passing, if my memory serves. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, it was. It came out in 2010 and he died in 2012.
Oh wow, so and it's a movie that I'm a big fan of, and maybe it's because I was just in the right place at the right time in terms of my age and loving it, but that movie is just it's like it's a white knuckle thrill ride, and I hate using that term, but that's the best I can describe it. It gives you enough story to sympathize with Chris Pine and Denzel Washington, and then straight into the train stuff for the next hour 45. It's great stuff. If you all have not seen it, see it. It is very good.
Yeah, I've actually seen Unstoppable. One of the early director projects I did on my channel was Tony Scott. And obviously, I came to Unstoppable last because it was his last movie. And I loved it so much, it ended up in my top three from the director. It is such, much like what you said, Ryan, it's an adrenaline fueled thrill ride. I like that the movie used as much practical effects as possible with the train and everything, which made the movie a lot more suspenseful. Chris Pine and Denzel Washington are real good. Some other good supporting players, Rosario Dawson. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I know him as the annoying dad in Michael Bay's Transformers. He's kind of a slimy character in this movie, but he still did a good job in it. It's all around a very thrilling movie that I was kind of shocked to learn was inspired by true events, but very loosely. I think the movie took a lot of embellishments, but it still made the movie more suspenseful to watch, knowing that this was loosely inspired by a real incident.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin Dunn for playing that role and just sacrificing that older conductor Judd Stewart like that. That was cold. That was just that was just way too cold. But y'all watch Unstoppable if you have not. That's where I will leave it, and I believe that's a good place to end the video. And I loved this. I think, Jacob, we can revisit this at a certain point. We have the animation celebration, and I think we can do another action celebration down the road.
Yeah, we can do it maybe when the new Mission Impossible comes out.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's one franchise we didn't bring up. And I think that would be a good time because, I mean, yeah, we're getting Dead Reckoning, which looks fantastic, and we barely seen any footage of it, which is,
Except Tom Cruise driving a motorcycle off a cliff.
off of a mountain because the dude does not know does not know the meaning of restraint. But I turn it over to you. What is your favorite action movie or movies? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And Jacob, thank you so much as always. It is a privilege doing this with you. Where can the people find you?
People can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook. Of course, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel where I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, all that good stuff. Like Ryan said at the beginning of the podcast, join us tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, where we'll be talking about Shrek 2 from our Discussing DreamWorks podcast, along with Jacob Collins from 3D Movie Cinema. I'm excited to talk about that movie, one of my favorite DreamWorks movies and one of the best animated sequels. I also do What I've Watched live streams. I just did one this past Saturday where I talk about movies that I've watched in the previous week. I also recently did a hangout on my channel with Jason the Old Millennial. I enjoyed doing that so much. I hope to do other hangouts with other YouTubers to try to make up for not doing as many videos that I've used to. And what else I got coming this week? What I usually do on the What I've Watched is I take the live streams, edit the videos down into shorter videos, and re-upload them as movie reviews. I just recently uploaded a video for a movie called The Crawling Eye, 1950s B movie. That was definitely a trip. I also do re-uploaded videos for the Mystery Natalie Wood, Galaxy Quest, along with what else was it? All over the Disney ones I did recently. Chicken Little and The Big Green were recent movies from the last stream. On my next live stream, I'll talk more on the Meet the Deals movie that I talked about tonight, which was such a terrible movie. But be on the lookout for more stuff coming on the channel real soon. Thank you once again, Ryan, for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, Jacob's channel will be linked in the description. Go give him a subscribe. And like Jacob said, discussing DreamWorks, or like we discussed earlier, discussing DreamWorks is coming Thursday night. We're talking about Shrek 2. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that. As for this channel, I plan on having my John Wick Chapter 4 review up at the very least Friday night, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, lots of content to look forward to. I'm going to be suffering through the Dungeons and Dragons movie starring Jeremy Irons, with the new Dungeons and Dragons movie coming to theaters next week. And then I will be also uploading a review for the Super Mario Brothers movie starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo in honor of the Super Mario Brothers movie from Illumination coming in just a couple of weeks. So watch me suffer as I review those movies. But if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe to the channel. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. You take care.